Hello again, friends and fans. Raptor here, and welcome back to, or should I say welcome to, a new series known as What the Deck. That's right, this is where I'm going to teach you the specifics of Wargame Red Dragon in terms of what vehicles are available, what they do, and how to counter other vehicles. For those of you who want to know what is best and what is cheap, what is maybe effective or fast or high rate of fire, anything you'd like to know to make your own decks, that's exactly what I'm here to do. And of course, you heard me kind of tripping up because there's so much to do. I don't even know where to start. Well, I do. So let's kind of go over the interface just a little bit here in Wargame Red Dragon. At the very top, since we're still in the beta, should be the single player. Then you'll have multiplayer, deck system, profile, options, and then quit. There may be some other options, and these things may be moved around in the future, but that's pretty self-explanatory. Now, there's two ways to look at the units in Wargame Red Dragon. You can either go to the deck and create your own deck. As you see here down here, there's a button at the very lower left that says Create. You click that and it'll bring up several options so you can make your own decks. Here I have little code words where I name mine, so I just can easily understand what's in the deck respectively. A lot of these numbers too help you to understand that's logistics, infantry, recon, tanks, aircraft, whatnot. And so for those of you who memorize those numbers, you know, like the last one for instance is Marine, you can tell that this deck doesn't have any Marines, but that's kind of advanced. But for those of you who just want to get started in Wargame Red Dragon, here we go. I've clicked the Armory button, and now we're looking at the Armory of Wargame Red Dragon. Now, this is extremely intimidating. There is a ton of information, and do not be afraid. I will help you walk through everything. So let's start in the upper left-hand corner then, under Alliances. Under Alliances, you see that we can select all, or basically none. There's a way to turn them off, and so that's a good way to filter. But anyway, the alliances are as such in this game. You have Blue 4, which is basically the NATO powers in general. Red 4, which is pretty much just everybody who is not NATO, which is the Pact, the Warsaw Pact, and then China and North Korea, which you could I guess you could put them in the Pact, but in this case they call it Red 4. Coalitions in this game are Eurocorps, which consists of French and German units. Scandinavia, the Scandinavian battle group that consists of Swedish, Norwegian, and Danish forces. Here you have the Commonwealth, and that consists of Great Britain, or British forces, Canadian forces, and Anzac, which is a combination or a coalition within a coalition, as it is New Zealand and Australian forces together. So in a sense you almost have 4 units in that card. Again, these are just ways to filter, and so if you want to find Japan and South Korea, that's a good way to just filter down to those two. And of course we have the Eastern Bloc, which consists of Poland, Czechoslovakia, and East Germany, and we have the Red Dragons, which consists of China and North Korea. Now, for instance, if you wanted to play as North Korea and China, all you had to do was light that up, click every other unit, and this is how you would find it. Actually, it doesn't, well, it's a strange way of how they work it, but if you just want to find Red Dragons, you can basically filter it out that way. Actually, what I shouldn't have done is I shouldn't have clicked Red 4. If you just unclick Blue 4, and then just click the, if you just click Red Dragons like that, it's a little strange to get there, but Red 4 does consist of USSR or URSS and French units because it does have naval units from that force. But keep in mind, all naval force, or rather all infantry or ground forces, including aircraft, are North Korea and China, unless you specifically go under the naval tab, which here you can see the so many, or you can see the, well, you see the ground forces are North Korea, but air forces are also mixed as well. But anything that goes on the ground other than anti-ship planes, well, that's a little confusing, but we'll get into that later. So with that filtering done, again, you can filter out red. These two ones are all the good guys and all the bad guys in a way of thinking. And then if you wanted to filter those even more, you could go Eastern Bloc only, or you can filter it down just to the Soviet Union, saying, well, I don't want North Korea, China, or Czechoslovakia, Poland, or East Germany. So there you go. You've now found yourself in all the Soviet units. Now, for simplicity, I'm just going to do this all with American units, as I did before in the deck spec videos, and this will help to keep things a little bit more simple. So now that I've explained kind of how to filter things out, we'll just go to America. As you can see, I've deselected everything other than Blue 4, United States. The United States and the Soviet Union in Wargame Red Dragon stand on their own as military forces that do not have anyone else with them. They do not have a coalition, though it is possible to play China only, North Korea only, or any nation on its own if you wanted. So anyway, let's go through the next tab then. We've gone through alliances and spoke a little bit about coalitions, and we've gone through the nations. Let's talk about the categories. In Wargame Red Dragon, as in all the previous games, you have tabs that consist of a very specific topic, with vehicle and support being a little bit more vague. They have more variety to them. And a new tab for Navy. Let's start at logistics then. So in logistics, there is a new unit added, which is infantry, command infantry. Command infantry is, as you see here, TACCOM, or it's basically marine infantry that have a radio with them, a radio operator who can command a zone, are very hard to spot. They can be hidden in homes, they can be hard to kill, and unlike a usual command vehicle, this set of infantry could hide in the forest or hide in a town and almost be invisible and hard to kill for a long time. You could probably you could cluster bomb them, hit them with artillery, and they won't die until eventually you score a direct hit on them with something big and bad. There's many new things to this game, and we're not going to go over it now, but I just wanted to make that note, and we'll brush over some stuff. Of course, there's new command units, but anyway, that's the purpose of logistics, is to command zones with the command units, and also to supply them with, for instance, the supply helicopter, the CH-47C Chinook. And where do they get all that supplies, you'd ask? Well, there's a little button here for the fob, which isn't shown here, but pretend we're inside the fob. It's basically just a walled-off building that has fuel, ammunition, and spare parts inside of it. And of course, there's even ground transports such as the Hemet and the M35 cargo truck that haul the very same. They haul ammunition, spare parts, and fuel for your units. Infantry is up next, and we'll go through all that stuff a little later in the series, but I just wanted to touch on it a little bit. You have special forces, flame forces, AA launchers. You have light riflemen, which also have medium, well, very short range but very powerful guided missile system to them. They also have they can even come with transports. For instance, the 3A1 Super Dragon here that even has AA launcher, or an AT launcher on top of it, I should say, and even things up to the M2A2 Bradley. So it's a combination of both infantry and vehicle for that point. So you see 15 plus 40, so you can, and even you can combine two units. You can say, well, what's the difference between Rifleman 90 in the M1A2 Bradley versus the regular Bradley? You can compare those two types of vehicles by doing that, or at least the infantry between those two. And there's no difference in the infantry, it's just the transport. One is 35 and one is 40, and you can compare those specs by doing that. Many other units, of course, I skipped over a lot of everything, which we'll go over everything eventually. We have artillery, we have bullet or shell-based AA, we have missile-based AA, and we have radar-guided based AA. And the difference between these two is that these are infrared-guided, which means they lock onto a heat signature of an aircraft or helicopter, and the radar-based AA locks onto it via radar, whether it's a helicopter or a airplane. Now, keep in mind, these can be destroyed by seed. They're higher point value and higher accuracy, and a seed aircraft, which basically locks onto that radar signature, can fire right at it and destroy it. Many other things to go over, but no worries on that. We'll cover everything eventually. Tanks, of course, you have very light tanks, you have medium cavalry tanks, you have medium tanks, such as the M60A3 Patton, and then of course we get into the heavier and longer range Abrams, such as the M1 Abrams, all the way up to the M1A2, and the Marines even have their own specific tank as well. There's more of a difference than just a paint job. One's a prototype made in '92, and wow, that's even younger than I am. Oh, look at the little tank. 180 points for that. You can see all the accuracy and stuff. We'll go over that later. Recon, very important in this game. And of course, the very impressive 150-point Apache longbow. This crazy bastard right here can fire 16 Hellfire missiles that have a 70% chance of hitting every time and can engage up to 2,800 meters. That's impressive. Not to mention it can almost fly. Well, that's knocking on the door of almost 400 kilometers an hour. So that's a very impressive new helicopter-based recon, and also it can fire Hellfires as well. So it's not just a recon that needs to hide and can't fend for itself. This thing can destroy anything. We also have armored cavalry units that can recon as well, all the way down to lighter jeeps, and also infantry that can recon as well. Navy SEALs are very, 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 very capable units at this moment. They can see everything. They have a grenade launcher that can destroy lighter vehicles with 60% accuracy. That's scary. They can be brought up anything all the way up to the Prog, which is basically a Chinook with extra fuel to. It's a little different actually. It's not a Chinook per se, but it's very fast flying helicopter, and it has a little bit more armor. Not to mention it can fly further. And again, we have the Kiowa, which fires Hellfires of its own, and we have more ground-based recon. Vehicles, you have ATGMs, which are anti-tank guided missiles. They can fire up to those ranges you see there. We'll go over all that stuff a little bit later. And you can even see that we have flamethrower launchers. This is why the support tab is very diverse, as it had a lot of artillery in it, which I should have made mention of. Again, in the support tab, there's shell-based artillery, mortar there, and rocket-based artillery. And anyway, in the vehicle tab, you pretty much have kind of the same thing going on here. You have rocket ATGMs, and you have even recoilless rifles that you can deploy. For instance, here we see the M1 5A2 TOW, and then there's different versions of the TOW that are just more accurate. We can also call out the Bradley, not individually, but it does let you see what the Bradley can do on its own. And you can even see the Combat, which is Bradley without the ATGM on it, and you can call this out as well, and you can see what it can do. And so all the vehicles in the game are covered. You see the transports. This is going to be a big tab if you want to look into what infantry can take. This 10-point Humvee is unarmed and is basically worthless and can't be equipped without being transporting infantry. So there you go on that. So vehicles, again, very, very important. And also you can see what the amphibious landing craft do. And in the right corner here, you see amphibious. This unit can drive through water, and you can see it can do that at 33 kilometers per hour, I should say. And there you go for that. Not all units, by the way, are amphibious. You can see the M132 Zippo is, but the LTV, or rather the M67A1 is not. Again, the A1 more armored, more points, and can get into a town a little better, but the Zippo does carry more ammunition. Helicopters, as we just touched on before, helicopters come in all different shapes and sizes. You can see, again, specifics of, you can't call out individual helicopters like, for instance, the Chinook, but you could call out the Little Bird or the Apache, and you can see exactly what it does, what its capabilities are. For instance, this Super Cobra has AIM-9 missiles that are capable of engaging other helicopters at 2,400 meters. That is impressive. We also have the DAP, or DADAS, also known as the Dual Action Penetrator. Carries 8 Hellfire missiles and has a minigun and a 30mm cannon on it as well. That's a bad boy right there. So again, even helicopters themselves can carry miniguns, or in the case of the Heavy Hog, a lot of rockets. Very Vietnam-y here with the with the grenade launcher up front and the rockets on the side. And you can see how much they carry and how far they can go and all that great detail on those vehicles. Very important. For the Americans, speaking of very important, it seems like tanks and aircraft are extremely important, as well as infantry that is elite or more skilled in terms of the Marines. But here you can see there's the A-10 Warthog, which is very effective against enemy ground forces. The Raven, which is even more effective against enemy ground forces in terms of specific seed, and it can even target ships, as ships are basically floating missile batteries with a radar dish on top. This is a very, very, very good unit in taking out enemy seed, and 135 points with an exceptional air detection, and 60% of the time it will evade enemy ECM. So that's very important. You can see bombers as well, such as the Nighthawk, and you can even see fighters such as a big favorite of most people, or most famous, Tom Cruise himself, in the, where is it now? The F-14 Tomcat. Yeah, very cool. You can see that this thing is armed with a 20mm cannon and can carry AIM-54 Phoenix missiles that can engage enemy aircraft up to almost 12,000 meters. So that's very impressive. TOT is a new thing, time over target, how long you can fly before evacuation. If you call this aircraft out during a regular battle, it can stay in the air for 90 seconds before it has to go home due to being out of fuel. So keep that in mind if you need an air superiority presence over the battlefield. That's going to be the best way to do this. Now, again, I know we're touching on everything very briefly, and I've skipped a lot, but that's just how it's going to be as we introduce the newer players to what each one of these tabs does. And a new tab to us all should be this, the Navy tab. Now, we were in the garage a second ago as we were looking at an M60 that can land amphibiously, but ships are now completely new to the game. Wow, look at that intimidating missile on the front of that ship. Ooh. Oliver Hazard Perry. You have many different ships. You have destroyers, and you have river boats. You have even howitzer boats. This small ship, very small compared to that other one, huh? This ship here is actually capable of firing dual M2 Browning machine guns, and well, it's an autocannon 20mm, and an M49 howitzer on it as well. so this is great close range support. And in the game, you can even have a Vietnam era battle. You can even have North Korea versus South Korea, and let's say 19, well, you could even limit it to the earliest amount you wanted. So let's go ahead and just take a look at some of the other ships that we're able to call out. You have the Pegasus here, which is it's a hydrofoil. It can lift up out of the water and can fire those RGM-84 harpoons, and even has the Melara 76mm on it. I'd like to say that's probably Swedish. I'm not exactly certain, but the Swedes do design a lot of very amazing naval guns for almost all the armed forces in the world, so really cool to see that on an American ship. Zippo ship too can get close range, almost very similar to the look. It's got the little American star on it. Very Vietnam-y. That's very cool. Nam Vietnam. Also, we have the anti-ship aircraft, and those are extremely important as well. You can see this fires the AGM harpoon as well, except it's a fast mover. And if you overwhelm enemy ships with these, you could win. Pro tip: as of current, it seems that it is more efficient to wear the enemy down by firing ASMs at them on via, well, helicopter. Now, I would say if you engage the enemy with ships first, like for instance the Oliver Hazard Perry, and if you're having trouble getting through the rest of their defenses, or if they brought up more defenses, try to overwhelm them with aircraft, and try to use ASM helicopters as well to overwhelm them. And it's better to finish them off, because if you score one hit and lose your aircraft, you could break even. No need to use aircraft right at the start. I'm just trying to find a American anti-ship helicopter, and I can't see one at the moment, but there are other forces that have, oh, I should say the Seahawk, of course. The Seahawk here is capable of firing the AGM-119 Penguin, 2 radar-guided heat, fire and forget anti-ship missiles. Another good thing to know for you noobs is that if you need to know exactly what something does, you can hover over it. AGM is an air-to-ground missile. You can see the name of it right there. You can see that this is a high-explosive anti-tank, or in this case just anti-armor. Fire and forget: once it fires, the missile doesn't require any more action from the operator. So once this missile fires, you can basically get out with the Seahawk and return to safety, and it's an anti-ship missile as well. In fact, it is a heat, though. It could even be used against tanks if you needed it. You can see the ammo is 2. You can see the range to ground, helicopters, airplanes, which there is none, so it can only engage ground. 50% accuracy with 50% stabilizer, weapons chance of hit while on the move, AP power, HE, suppression, reload time, many other stats here. But this is a basic crash course. It's very quick, but there's tons to do, tons to learn. And for those of you who want to see prototypes and everything, when we create a deck, it will probably be an American-only deck to start with, so we may not get some of the prototypes if we choose not to bring them. For instance, we'll do an American-only deck, and I'll have to bring like the Nighthawk at some point, but there may be some things that will be excluded depending on how we make the deck. So anyway, everything was pretty much shown off. If you want to see this, you'll have to go to the armory once you get the game. But here's some of the other vehicles available, and I'll scroll down just to kind of show you everything. But when you're selecting different decks, unless you have specific decks, sometimes you won't have access to a lot of these aircraft, and I mean that in terms of numbers. But you can see pretty much everything available here. So that's it for now. Tell a friend, you guys, and help this great channel and this great game to grow. I'm going to give you more information in the future when the game comes out. This will help some of you newbies to get started. I'm going to hopefully create a cache of these, so that way there's more to watch. So check out the next video. We'll be talking about logistics and infantry all the way down the line to Navy. Navy's something I'm going to have to learn eventually myself. So anyway, I'll see you guys on the battlefield for some naval landings. You're going to have to create a specific deck for that. We'll go over points and activation points and all that sort of stuff, and whether or not to choose a unit and how to compare after a while. So we'll see you. Goodbye. Take care. Bring that cornucopia of pain. Keep the pimp hand strong. We'll see you. Bye.